This is our video presentation on the sport of soccer, and the position we will be focusing on is goalkeeping. As a goalkeeper, the main energy system that you will use is the ATP-PC system, and also sometimes anaerobic glycolysis. You won't see the aerobic pathways because of the way the sport is. Goalkeepers aren't required to do any sort of long distance running as opposed to other soccer players, and all the main points of their play is quick agility and powerful movements. So that is why that energy system is used. The skills that you'll see is obviously handling, kicking, throwing, jumping. Athletically, that's the most important things because goalkeepers are required to jump in order to catch the ball from crosses and also to make dives. And there's a lot of lateral movements too to get across the goal, and you have to be able to move your feet quick, so agility is very important. The test that we've used is the vertical jump test, which will measure lower body power, the med ball throw, which will measure upper body power, the 5-10-5, which measures change of direction, the 20-meter sprint, which measures speed and acceleration, and the hexagon test for agility, and the sit and reach and back scratch for both hamstring and then shoulder flexibility. We feel that this test battery will cover all aspects of a goalkeeper, and we feel that each of these tests, as we go on in the video, we will describe why each one is specific to the sport, and we'll give examples of good and bad ways to monitor the test. So as the video goes on, we'll talk about that.
The first test is the vertical jump test. This test measures flight time, and this test is measured using a vertec, which is what the subject is standing on. This test is from standstill position, as you can see in the video, that the subject does not take any steps prior to his jump. You can see in the video that the subject is using his lower body and bending his knees to get to the highest possible position. The error that occurred in this video is that the subject did not land in the correct position. It is important to make sure that the subject returns to the same position as when he started. The subject should go straight up and come straight back down to the landing position. In this video, you can see that when the subject lands, he lands with his heels first instead of his toes. This can cause the subject to tip over and lose his balance. The best thing is for the subject to land on his toes so that he keeps his balance.
Medicine ball throw measures upper body strength and power, which is necessary for a goalkeeper. Proper technique is head and back against the bench, feet on the ground, hands to the side of the ball, and elbows by your side. One improper technique is to bring the head and back off of the bench, which allows for more use of the body and more power. Second improper technique is to kick the feet up when throwing the ball. Feet should remain in contact with the floor the entire exercise.
Okay, the next test in our battery is the 5-10-5, which measures change of direction. Obviously, this is very important for goalkeepers because they're constantly having to change direction within the 6-yard box when adjusting the shots and crosses from the opposition, and they need to be able to do this as quick as possible. So this test is a very good way of measuring this. To start this test, you will stand in the middle, 1 foot either side of the line, where the cone represents the middle, and you will start with your hand closest to the side that you'll be starting off to give you a quick push off. You'll then push off to that side and then touch with your hand and your foot on the cone, which is 5 yards, back again 10 yards to the other side, touch with your hand and foot again, and then back to the middle as fast as you can across the line. So that is and as you can see in this video, that's the correct way to administer this test. Okay, now we're going to show you some incorrect techniques to use in this test. In this video, you will see the first incorrect technique. As you can see, the participant has a palm flat on the ground as opposed to her fingertips. This will reduce her time because it means that she's lower and therefore can't push off as quick. So as you can see, when she pushes off the ground initially, because her palm is there, it is harder for her. So this is an incorrect technique and a commonly made mistake. Okay, the next mistake you can see is the participant initially steps with the left foot as opposed to the right. In this test, you should always step across because you're going to get a longer stride, which will help you with your speed when going towards the first 5 cone. As you can see in the video, she steps with her left foot first, that small step, which is going to reduce her time. It's also another common mistake seen in this test. The last common mistake you'll see in the 5-10-5 test is shown in the video. When you run to the cone for the 5 and then again for the 10, you should always do it in a straight line and then bounce back in the same exact linear fashion. As you can see in this video, she runs around in a kind of an arc, which is going to slow her time significantly, and this is another common mistake.
The next test is a 20-meter dash. The aim is to determine acceleration as well as speed, agility, and quickness. The equipment used is a measuring tape, stopwatch, and cone markers. The procedure is to run a single maximum sprint for 20 meters. The time should be recorded. At the starting position, 1 foot must be behind or on the starting cone. 2 trials are taken and the best time is taken. In this video, you can see that the subject is bent down as he's starting the test. He then places his foot behind the cone, and as soon as the start whistle goes, he's bent over as far down as possible so that he can get the most speed and acceleration at the start. In this video, you can see that the runner jockeyed back as he puts all of his weight in his back foot. This caused him to pause before he even took off, causes a slower start time. In this video, you can see that the runner starts in a straight up position and continues his run in a straight up position. This causes no acceleration. His body should be downward and a little like he's a bullet coming out of a gun. In this video, you can see that the runner is not using his arms and leaning straight forward, which can cause him to lose his balance.
The hexagon test will test agility. Goalkeepers must be agile. Begin in the middle and start by jumping with 2 feet over the first side of the hexagon and return back to the middle. Proceed to do this for every side, but do not completely turn your body. Go around the hexagon 3 times. This test is usually timed. The first improper technique is jumping too high and slow. The hexagon test does not test for jump height, but for agility and quickness. The second improper technique is stepping on the sides. You must completely jump over the sides of the hexagon to complete a valid test.
So another part of our test battery will be testing flexibility. We'll do this in 2 areas of the body. We'll use the sit and reach test to test hamstring flexibility and the back scratch test to test shoulder flexibility. Firstly, we have the sit and reach test, which is a common method to test hamstring flexibility. This is important for goalkeepers because they're always moving with the legs and feet, and obviously hamstring injuries are very common among soccer players. So this test involves you sit on the floor with both legs stretched straight out ahead. Obviously the shoe should be removed before this test and the soles of the feet are placed against the box. The reason we have another person there is to make sure that the knees are locked and not straight on the floor and there's no bend, because this is if the knees are bending, it's not going to be really testing the hamstring flexibility. So the first mistake you can see, which is very common, is that the participant that is helping out does not straighten the legs of the athlete. This will cause an invalid test. The next common mistake in this test is a jerk movement when pushing. Although the legs still remain locked in this, as you can see, the athlete will push with a forceful one movement as opposed to a gradual push. The next test we use for flexibility will be the back scratch test. This is very important for goalkeepers too because it measures shoulder flexibility, which is obviously very important because the shoulders are commonly used throughout the game when making saves, catches, any type of movement in the upper body. This test is administered by either using the right or left arm. Will go over your head, as you can see in the video, and you will reach down as close as you can to the other hand, which will be going under, and the score will be measured on how close the fingertips touch. If there's gap between the fingertips, that space will be measured, and if it overlaps, it gets a minus score. So obviously the best score you can get is by overlapping the fingers. The first common mistake seen here is that the athlete doesn't put the hands in the correct place. Instead, she moves it across the back as opposed to straight up, and obviously the score will be poor for this and not valid. In order to correct this, you would make sure that both arms are directly down the spine in a straight fashion. The second common mistake we see here is that the athlete leans forward to try and help the fingers touching. This isn't good at all either because it's not measuring the shoulder flexibility, it's also incorporating the back, trying to help lift up the arms. So an important key for this would be to make sure that the athlete remains up straight the whole time.
Even though this video does not show the correct order, we want to start with the non-fatiguing tests first and progress to agility, maximal power, and then sprint testing. We will give athletes notice of when we will be testing so they can prepare mentally and physically the day before. We will administer a warm-up for the athletes before testing. To ensure consistency, the same tester will administer the test in groups before moving on to the next test. We will do the sit and reach, back scratch, vertical jump, and medicine ball throws inside. Then we will test our players outside on their playing surface for the 5-10-5 drill and the 20-meter sprint test. After each test, we will notify athletes of their scores.